So let's talk cold stuff. Um, I began to work on the astrology as it relates to cults, elites, and whatnot. I have asteroid Aries conjuncting my Mercury, which is the ruler of my seventh house of partnerships and open enemies, and the ruler of my fourth house of housing, as you may have noticed if you watch my channel. And so, and upbringing and lineage and grave. Um, and the work on Aries has been something that is ongoing. We used to, in astrology, hear about Aries as the LGBTQ people. No, no, there's way more. Um, and I'm now working on sedna. I have sedna Venus conjunction in my natal chart. It is not lovely. And in fact, it made my relational experience quite which completely took away from overall life, maybe even expectancy, but also a sense of joy of living. Because like you need people around you. Venus is connections, not just romantic connections, also friendships, and that can be. So I want to talk about cult things and things that happen around the cult. I wrote the entire post on Instagram and it just showed my picture. And I'm like, Mercury is retrograde. But let's talk about this. First of all, there is entire, so this is number one. There is entire work of production around the individuals that are within the cult, but also if you come in association with anybody. It could be you go into academia. It could be your bloodline is desired, okay? It could be you dated someone. It could be you went to therapy and they were. There's a lot of expansion of the MK Ultra project to do it from afar. So you may have been affiliated in ways you never consented to, don't even know. Definitely if you're dating someone and they are Masons, or if you have even roommates, like this can be from so many places. So that might apply to you. And so there's a gigantic work of production that's done around each and every individual with the intention to orchestrate synchronicities. That can feel for people that they are spiritually brought together. I'm not just talking twin flames and stuff, it's just like synchronicities. And while you might genuinely be spiritually associated, but sometimes the spirituality is the cult. And the cult is an inversion of that. So they might interfere in synchronicities or downright create synchronicities. And the intention is to bring a certain scenario into play between you and control that scenario. And for that to be the inversion of a happy, healthy scenario, whether it's work situation, life situation. What you need to know that these people are sophisticated. They're using machine learning. They use all the surveillance that is on people. You can either completely live cave life, or you're just going to have to tend to the fact that those things happen. Another thing, many people in the cult are programmers. Being a programmer actually makes you more susceptible to being programmed, not less. So even from the point that people are investing their energy outwards, then they're just not in themselves, okay? Because the people that are really, really like elite, they are created with a lot of torture. And that is making them, again, more susceptible. More things. There are going to be emotions involved, okay? Those emotions are going to be very real. And you have to be aware of the gigantic manipulation that is done on people. So while you'd be surprised that the emotions are real, there's gigantic manipulation that is done on people. Again, the goal is to make the inversion of relations. So that means betrayal. there are many ways. I'm half Dutch, for example, and in Netherlands we have legalized nearly everything. Whereas non-monogamous relationships, use of drugs, people going to prostitution or doing prostitution, they even have attempted at pedophilia, which is taking it up a notch, where I think is we're gonna need a new way to deal and tackle the many cold things that happen, and have problem solving that is aimed at tackling the issue of the fact that this is a global cult and it is a cult of betrayal and inversions. And this leads me to the next point, the scenarios. So scenarios that might play out. A Cinderella scenario. You might know the Cinderella scenario from, we had basically a queen that met the king of the prince or king of Netherlands. She was in Spain and he was traveling, and she was a commoner and she didn't know who he is, and then they fell in love, and thanks to her you could have nationality, Dutch nationality, through acquiring Dutch language. So this is, for example, a Cinderella story that may play out. Those are very orchestrated by the cult. Okay, there's, for example, we wouldn't have an influx of refugees, being able to acquire a language with the pros and cons of that, without that Cinderella story. Okay, so those scenarios are really thought after, they're really played out. Unfortunately, to control people, they would also play out certain types of betrayal and curses, and because people are tortured, it's like it is what it is. Okay, so Cinderella story, any type of Disney story, Alice in Wonderland stories is a part of a program that people go even from the womb. So those might play out. Okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. Attempts to make you move from one set of conditions to another, and you want to try and take your sovereignty within that. Okay, because that is going to be very important. Initiations, or what seems like initiations into the underground, into the dark. A lot of the left-hand path, and I don't claim to know the whole left-hand path of magic, but a lot of it is inversion of magic. So you want to tend to the fact that can be called worldviews that have to do with karma, that you did something in the past and that's why you get it now. The global cult has been orchestrating things for forever. So if that spiritual helps you to accept it, then I'm not here to take what helps from you. But these are other things that you want to pay attention to. And with sedna, you might see the inclination to betrayal if in your chart you have any planets associated with sedna, particularly Venus, and any planets associated with Beta Persei. You might be extra susceptible to that. You see a lot of leaders that have midheaven Beta Persei, that is a goal. Okay, Sol Beta Persei, Venus Beta Persei was associated with the royal family. With sedna Venus can also be associated because it's a cult of betrayal. And last but not least, this is a cult of incest. So stories around incest may come. There can be eroticization of these stories and eroticization of betrayal. People, do you notice around that? You see, because it is a cult of betrayal, because people are tortured from the womb, because people do want to have sex or access to their erotic fantasy world, then that is a part of the damages of sexual boundary violation. Okay, it affects sexuality. So there might be eroticization of betrayal, or people around you may have eroticization of betrayal. There might be an actual intimacy challenge. If you're associated with people, if you are in the cult, then it's very likely that, let's say, the C factor of torture is more important factor around your human nature. That want to eliminate that C factor of torture if you want to get to know your own nature. So that that is a humble, okay, suggestion as to for the way that we see ourselves and the conclusion that we conclude over our own human nature. There's a lot of programming that goes into that, a lot of human experience as well. Dissociation, since those things are practiced in the womb. That entails, okay, a lot of dumbfuckery that drains on the person when a person goes to even healing. One of the reasons that I don't offer related readings is because when they decide to torture a person, they will. So it means that even you listen to my video right now, you sift and sort what is relevant to you. And this is why any type of medical field or any type of field that is hierarchy based or initiation that is hierarchy based might not be compatible with dealing with the cult of betrayal. It's global cult. This also means that whatever assistance, whether you go to therapy or whether you go to a reading, that you might see, I've already began to see it around me, that those will be infiltrated. To tackle that, we would need to tackle the concept of torture, the concept of double agents all across the board. The concept, not the people. Okay, because that can be so easily used for another form of democide, whereas it's the topic at hand rather than the divide and conquer that the cult loves to do, and then tell you that both the whites and the blacks on the chessboard are wiped out. Okay, the V that turns to an X. This is happening in the world right now. So you're gonna see infiltration of literally every topic. One thing about this, even when you had, I don't know, a chip or a V, it's not dictation of how your life would go, and it's not dictation that those things will necessarily happen to you. It's attempt to do a course and infiltration, but there is also actual curation, and the sift and sort between the inversion is something that requires sovereignty and requires not putting the power in the hands of shamans, healers, readers, but also doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on. It can give a feeling of it's each to their own, but that isn't even infiltrated, and we know that healing happened within connection, with open dialogue and validation. So there's a lot, okay? It's a heavyweight topic. Bringing it to awareness and to discussion is important. The fact that Pluto trines Sedna now, and Uranus is going to join in conjunct, and Neptune is going to sextile, and Saturn is going to sextile, it's also a window of opportunity where that entire global cult and the acts of betrayal and courses and scenarios to create the inversion of relations, that's all going to be exposed on a very large scale. So this is a part of the content that I made yesterday, and that's also the optimistic part around that. Okay, they expanded to be so global that, you know how they say, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. When masses of people want out, eventually they create an alternative and an opportunity, which is very literally golden ages. We can't be ushering to golden ages, in some sort of dark ages, we can't be ushered to golden ages with cults of betrayal. Sedna, when you work magically, and we give reverence to Sedna, is also a deity that gives you honest, true love, that you are free within and outside a relationship, and that also entails financially, spiritually, psychically, and in terms of the cult. So there is something, there is a point of optimism within this. It's a very realistic one, it's a very informed one, but it's also awareness steers us out when we understand more of what affects our thinking, our decisions, our relations. So yes, you might see synchronization. You uploaded one thing, another person just uploaded another thing. Both of you might not be aware. It can be genuine synchronization. It can also be a giant ton of orchestration done to make them upload this and you upload that, and create all kinds of scenarios around that. So it goes right from our between flames to the single white woman being a married white man. And so being aware of that can be very remediating and can be very healing. And being aware, okay, for example, I attend to political assassination prevention. Of course, they would try to orchestrate scenario of betrayal on that level, and that's about both me and the people being aware of that. And those people, like, they are sophisticated, but also we are sophisticated, and we grow and we learn. And when it comes to betrayal, it's about the set of loyalties, okay? And the more we deepen our presence in our body, the more we curate from torture, from sexual boundary violation, we manage to fend that, the more healthy boundaries we can have around themselves. And that is the process of what they call respect. Respect is an end product in the cult of betrayal, because you were designed to disrespect yourself. You were designed to not even exist. So respect is an end process, and it's a process of getting to know yourself and the boundaries around yourself. With Venus, the Venus sednas, most of us are Venus sednas, some of us Aries sednas. It's knowing know thyself, but it's also in relation to what type of commitments can you give, what type can you not. Being flexible about your style of commitment is something we've all learned, whether it's to Esther Perel, whether it's even to the Sedna Aries generation, that, you know, I'm half Dutch, and non-monogamy was very legalized. I'm not talking about polygamy. I'm talking about the possibility that there's so many orchestrations done around things, and if it's, let's say, a Cinderella story that later they decide to change the script, neither people would be aware that they are living in a movie. It's going to feel like a movie spiritually, but neither people would be aware of what is the objective of that scenario. And if you're married, if you're committed, that can play out, okay, in various ways. Okay, we had in the astrological community someone that was working on a fertility talisman. That's something that the cult does not like. Okay, of course there was tremendous amount of orchestration to get that to be aborted, be infiltrated, to make her life a mess in general. And eventually, when I bought this talisman, I was exposed to Opus Dei, the cult of betrayal, Memento Mori, then deciding who will die and how. Very, very powerful. And it was very, very difficult to... You can understand that astrologers that are doing the art of timing in elections and what can happen in a certain window of times, okay, you get that there's a lot of work done around us as well. And I saw that even in random conversations with people, they'd be orchestrated. And the more a person is programmer, they are also susceptible to programming. So having a relaxed notion of, to have sovereignty we need determination, and to have determination we need randomness, and a good balance between this both. And there are also inversion of this balance. And discernment is indeed like foraging, and foraging for, let's say, mushrooms or fungi is an art that even very expert people die of poisoning as well. So I guess that was today's episode of Tending to My Toenail Fungi. So if you are one of these people where I uploaded a picture of my face, you uploaded a picture of your face, I say tend to something, you tend to something, yes, just, you know the cult if you're inside the cult. You know what's playing out. Neither of us know why, okay? And you know how sophisticated they are around trying to make people betray. I gave the story of Better de Vries and Tachi, and the political assassination of Better de Vries, who basically spoke against WHO, but also vouched for someone who was a mole X in that WHO. and the way it came about and how creative they are in creating those betrayal scenarios, but how those things might also expose for the fact that there's, later that Tachi would need to represent himself. He didn't want to be betrayed, so he didn't go to any lawyer office that represents sex offenders against children. That means he represented himself. That exposed something in the Netherlands that we hardly hear about Tachi. And if we do, it's like, oh, he's in Dubai, he's in this. No. He exposed something. That betrayal exposed something gigantic about the juristic system in Netherlands and about what people deal with in the court, because the reason it is so is because people would be in circumstances where they're completely drugged up and forced into scenarios, and those scenarios include animals and children. Okay? So there is a giant complexity around this, but we also need to tend to abolishing expandable children, satanic ritual abuse, and whatnot, and the intricacies around that. And the good thing is a common interest of everyone, both in the sense of not being litigated, but also in the sense of it kills the joy of living of people. And the double agent concept of working for the light and for the darkness really would, I think, be revised, especially when Uranus reaches sedna. So that's a more than 12 millennia type of transit. It's a big deal. It's not just a bisextile that is in itself a big deal. Yes, I'm going out. So that is something you want to take into account.